Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Monday edition of the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network and on our YouTube channel, Steelers YouTube channel. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you watching. If you're watching live, if you're not, we just appreciate you tuning in and listening. Myself, Chris Halicke, thank you for having or for coming on the show. Greg, it's been a weekend, man. It's been
What's
a busy
up, guys?
It's been a busy day.
It has been a weekend. I think both of us have been kind of all over the place.
Not as all over the place as that intro was, but it's all good. The beauty of a live show,
right?
But no, it's been a heck of a. I mean, listen, like we're already more than halfway through all the training camp practices. Like it's just crazy of where we are right now. That it's happened this fast. Shoot, man, I think like 6 practices left. It's like 3 this week and then 3 the following week. And then that's it for training camp. They're done in Latrobe.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to DK earlier, just kind of about balancing Steelers and Pitt and stuff like moving forward. And I was like, holy cow. Like, camp's done in like a couple, like less than a week. I think a little over a week.
Yeah.
And it came quick. It came quick. Goes by fast.
Yeah. It's already popping up. I expected it to today. CT Pittman saying, so Brandon Aiyuk, and Scott's like, any truth to the Aiyuk rumors? We will get to the Brandon Aiyuk stuff soon enough. We want to get some more people on the show before we really kind of dive into the latest when it comes to these Brandon Aiyuk rumors. If you've been on social media at all here today on, today's Monday, it's been pretty crazy. I think probably the noisiest it's ever been, but we'll see. But we'll get there. But before we do get to the Brandon Aiyuk stuff, I definitely wanted to address kind of the other hot topic, because this is becoming more and more of a hot topic, because the longer Russell Wilson sits out and the more consistent Justin Fields looks in practice, the more and more people believe that Justin Fields is going to be the starting quarterback come week 1, or at least be the starting quarterback sooner rather than later, whether it's week 1 or whether it's some point early in the season, like the shortest leash possible for Russell Wilson or whatever it is, and Justin Fields ends up taking over. I know both you and I see this situation pretty much the same way, but definitely wanted to discuss it to start off as we head into another week of spring training. And shoot, man, first preseason game is Friday. So what you were there yesterday. I was actually off. I think like the one off day I have like during a training camp practice. So what was the latest you saw? Because there was quite a bit of Justin Fields stuff in our Steelers feed on DK Pittsburgh Sports from practice yesterday.
Yeah, so like I'll say that I'll preface my statement with this, is that I still think until Russell Wilson gets consistent snaps in practice, in preseason games, he's the number 1 guy moving forward no matter what. Until that happens, he's the guy. He's in pole position. I will say yesterday was the first time I was kind of thinking, is he feeling the pressure already? Because it was the first time I saw a chink in the armor. We've seen a lot of consistency with Russell so far. Yesterday was the first time I've seen him throw a pick he threw a pick in 2v2 coverage drills. Nate Meters made a really good play on a ball and picked him off. 2 plays later, he threw kind of a 50-50 ball to Jacob Copeland. Joey Porter Jr. should have came down with it for another interception. He didn't. It kind of slipped through his hands. He was a little upset at himself afterwards. But you're right. But you see those things, and it's like, all right. So that's why I'm thinking the conversation is kind of ramping up a little bit today. And I mean,
it was until other things took precedence, but I know.
Fields also he turned in another solid day of practice yesterday, and I think like kind of what is making him so attractive to Steelers fans is the way he's throwing the ball, first of all, but also his ability to run and use his legs and everything like that. It makes him such an attractive candidate with who they have in the offense this year. And I'll say yesterday was the first day I actually questioned what's going to happen going into the season.
So, I mean, I've been saying it ever since they acquired, I think even before they acquired Justin Fields,
Mm-hmm.
that if they were to acquire him, the ceiling automatically goes up, because I think we all kind of know that Justin Fields has a massive ceiling. He has the tools to be another Lamar Jackson. I don't know about
100%.
if he could quite be on Lamar Jackson's level, like actually being able to win multiple MVPs, but to be a similar type of weapon. If he could ever learn how to make smarter decisions, which pretty much it just boils down to, if he can consistently play within the structure of the offense, and then when things break down, then use his legs, that's whenever he can become an insanely dangerous quarterback. Because so far in his professional career, we haven't seen that, and that's why he's turned the ball over 41 times in 3 seasons. And that's one of the things that's really the main thing that's holding him back, is not having the ability to consistently play within the structure of the offense. Now, maybe it's just been the wrong offense for 3 years. Maybe that's all it's been. Maybe Arthur Smith is the guy that can help unlock that, and Justin Fields is the guy. And he can just take off, and you don't even have to make a decision, because it could be a situation with which Russ gets hurt, and then Justin comes in and he never gives the job back.
Yeah, I think it's a situation. I think you see it a lot with like mobile quarterbacks all across the league, is where they're if something breaks down quickly, or if they don't get their first or second read, it's like, all right, I have the ability to extend this play, gain a lot of yards, so I might as well just go do that. Like I think you saw it early in Lamar Jackson's career. Josh Allen did it a lot as well in Buffalo early on. And so I think it's a thing with a lot of like mobile quarterbacks, that they're just like, I have this ability that's not going to stop me. I might as well, just kind of take off and get some yardages for sure.
Big Hurt says Fields have the ceiling to be between Lamar and Stroud. I actually think he's probably got a higher ceiling than Stroud. I think Stroud is already, even though he only has 1 season under his belt, I think he's a more polished pocket passer than Justin Fields is, but Justin Fields is way more dangerous with his legs. Way more dangerous with his legs. I mean, he's already a 1,000-yard rusher. Like, so that's something that's already known, that he can do a lot of damage with his legs. It's, again, the thing that's going to take him from here to here is the ability to play within the structure of the offense, be an actual quarterback within the structure of the offense, execute the offense as planned, and then when, like, whether it's by the time you get to your second read, or depending on what the concept is, by the time you get to your 4th read, whatever it is, that's when, when things start to break down, then, Justin, use your athleticism, use your legs. And then obviously there's so many other things you can do, read options with him. There's just a lot of, like I said, ceilings up here. It's just the ability to realize that. Hold on, we got DK on the show. Hey guys, first time, long time. What are all those awards Greg's won back there?
Just a couple of my degrees. No awards.
But I mean, it's just it is true that the ceiling goes way up if Justin's there. But I agree. I don't think we're there. We're not there to say Justin is. I don't want to call this a full-blown quarterback competition yet. I really don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's there either. And I mean, like I said, to start off, kind of my statement was that until he's back getting consistent snaps, and he's not just sitting in 11-on-11s, handing the ball off, which I don't know if you heard the conversation yesterday. But the last snap of 11-on-11, Russell Wilson called an audible at the line of scrimmage and threw his first pass of 11-on-11. Mike Tomlin said it wasn't an audible, but I was standing on the sideline watching the play. He called an audible and completed the pass. So until he is consistently taking snaps, this isn't a competition. It's Russell Wilson's job to lose. But there's still a long way to go until the first game of the regular season. So that's
the thing. I mean, shoot, man, the first preseason game isn't until Friday. Like it's been a pretty, for the most part, it's been a pretty lackluster camp. There's not a lot of actual position battles. Like obviously the offensive tackles, you have Dan Moore Jr. and Broderick Jones and Troy Fautanu. and how all that's gonna shake out. Some stuff on the defensive line, but all that's like more depth. You know that when Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and Keanu Benton are all healthy, those are the three guys. Like, there's not a lot of actual position battles, and so people got to have something to talk about. And so as soon as they see Justin Fields, and the thing that really drives me crazy is the people that keep track of stats during training camp. Like, because, like, for example, I saw like somebody, like a
20,
fan video
29 touchdowns and 2 interceptions or something like that.
Not even just that, but seeing like a play. It was a play in which I don't even remember who the receiver was, but Fields hit him on like a cross or like a deep post or something like that. And it said it's an 81-yard touchdown. No, it's not. Like, they're not going open tackle down the field on receivers. Defensive backs let up, they let them run. You know, that's just the way it goes. It's not an 81-yard touchdown. And so for people who are actually keeping track of stats, they'll count that, oh yeah, it was an 81-yard touchdown pass. And that's why you don't take any stock in what you see on Twitter when it comes to this kind of stuff. Listen to the people who are actually there covering it. Now, do I think Justin's done more for himself with this opportunity? Absolutely, 100%. Yes, I do. I think he's absolutely given Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith and everybody else an opportunity to really see what he can do with the starters, at least in terms of from a practice standpoint, and then know, okay, if anything happens with Russ, we know that Justin can, he's building this rapport and he's looking pretty good doing it. But we all kind of know what happens in training camp and preseason when somebody looks good. We don't just want to automatically assume that things are going to work out, because look what happened with Kenny Pickett last year.
Yep.
So
how it goes.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
And Lifted one says, we just missed the season, Chris, and that's all we got right now. I get it. Like, I understand it, and people want to talk about it. And again, like, I'm not discrediting what Justin Fields is doing in practice. I might be probably one of the more optimistic when it comes to, I think, of how he's looked. He's looked really good. I've seen him step up in the pocket and really, maintain posture in the pocket when it's collapsing in on him. It's just the thing is that it's different when those guys who are trying to rush you aren't wearing a Steelers uniform.
And they're not letting up when they get close to you.
It's a little bit different. It's a little bit different because there's a hard and fast rule: don't touch the quarterback during training camp. And so, yes, like when things are getting close, like, guys are going to start letting up. And like, okay, well, how is he going to really react when it's the Houston Texans defense going after him on Friday, or when it's the Buffalo Bills defense going after him the next week, or when it's Detroit? And then regular season, when things get ramped up even more, it's not pretend games anymore. So again, Justin's done everything that he could possibly do to put himself into a good position. But is this a legitimate quarterback competition in which I'm ready to say Russell Wilson is in danger of not being the starting quarterback? I'm not ready to go there yet.
No, neither am I.
Okay, I think we do need to get to this because people are asking about it. Lifted Ones asked earlier, will we go a full pod without talking or mentioning Brandon Aiyuk?
Nope.
No, and definitely not today. Okay. The noise on social media is pretty loud today about the Steelers and Brandon Aiyuk, things picking up, or, you got some people that are out there reporting stuff. And needless to say, there are people that I don't fully 100% trust, people that have been right in the past, but their batting average isn't great from a reporting standpoint. Which you got to be batting in the high 900s if you really want to be trustworthy. Because, I don't think every reporter bats 1,000, but the really good ones are, like I said, they're batting in the 980s, 990s.
They're good most of the time, yeah.
Right. So, okay. When it comes to this Brandon Aiyuk stuff, I'm just going to go straight back to what I reported 10 days ago, in which I reported that the Steelers are convinced that they're going to land one of three guys. And those three names that I was given was Brandon Aiyuk, DK Metcalf, and Tyreek Hill. Now, we already know what happened with Tyreek Hill. He got his contract extension with the Miami Dolphins. Even whenever I reported it, I made Tyreek a separate bullet in the Friday Insider because I thought that was the least likely situation, the least likely scenario, given a lot of different factors. And that's exactly what happened. Tyreek isn't going anywhere. Not surprised. But I also said, and literally in the words, like in writing, said the most likely situation is Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah.
And the reason why was because I was told that they are starting to soften to the idea of trading him to an AFC team, that they still don't want to bat, that they still don't want to so I was reading comments as I'm talking, that they still don't want to trade to within the NFC. And then Adam Schefter made a really good point on the Pat McAfee show today that Brandon Aiyuk has pretty much all the leverage here, because the Patriots, like Abraham says it here. Let's be honest. Patriots need it more and can give him $30 million easy. The Patriots definitely would be a more attractive trade partner with the 49ers than the Steelers, because they're going to be a worse team. So they're going to have higher draft picks, and they have like plenty of cap space in order to sign him to a massive contract. However, Brandon Aiyuk could tell the Patriots, I'm not signing a contract.
Yeah.
And if that happens, the Patriots could then call John Lynch and be like, yeah, we're not trading for him because he's not going to sign with us. We're not going to give up all these assets to get a guy for 1 year whenever we have pretty much no chance of winning the Super Bowl this year. So that might rule out the Patriots. That might rule out the Browns, other teams that have been tied to him. And the fact of the matter is that you could go to the pivot episode that Brandon Aiyuk was on, and he pretty much said that if he's not playing for the 49ers, he could see himself playing with either the Commanders or the Steelers. So then you take into account my reporting saying that the 49ers don't want to trade within the NFC. That, to me, makes the Steelers the most likely spot for Aiyuk to land in a trade. Do I think it's going to happen? Based off of what I've been told, the Steelers are convinced that they're going to get one of these guys, and Aiyuk is the most likely guy, but never say, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to make guarantees or anything like that. Just because the team is convinced that they're going to acquire him doesn't mean that it's going to 100% happen. But that's just the main thing that I wanted to say about this is that, like, listen, I was reporting this 10 days ago that the Steelers are convinced they're going to get a guy. The 49ers were softening to the idea of a trade to an AFC team. And lo and behold, 10 days later, all of a sudden it seems like there's, something picking up when it comes to this. I don't know how true these are. I haven't seen anything from a reporter that I fully trust about, but whenever it's coming out of the Bay Area and there are Bay Area reporters starting to say that the 49ers are starting, like, it's pretty much never been more likely that they're going to trade him.
Yeah.
That's when you start to wonder, like, okay, is this actually going to happen? And could this happen sooner rather than later?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, the biggest thing for me is Omar Khan touched on it during his opening press conference of training camp when, they have like around 15 million left in cap space. Normally, they don't have that much left in cap space this close to the season. So you got to think that he's waiting for the other shoe to drop. And that's the thing for me that I think says, something is coming, whether it's sooner or later close to the season. But I think something's going to happen. It's just with that money available, you never know.
Yeah. Mike says here, let's get Terry McLaurin, Tyler Lockett, or DK Metcalf. Aiyuk money is not team friendly. I'd rather pay George later. A couple of things here, and this is more conjecture on my part. The stuff that I've heard from people that I talk to within the organization, this is more getting a feeling of, not a full-blown, like, something's in concrete or anything like that. First off, with the Terry McLaurin stuff, Washington's not trading Terry McLaurin unless they acquire Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah.
And then they might have a situation in which they might be willing to get rid of McLaurin if they were to acquire that. But again, I don't think that that's going to happen unless for whatever reason the 49ers just decided that what they'd be getting in return is way better from Washington than it would be from Pittsburgh. Tyler Lockett, that can make sense because Seattle's going to be in cap hell pretty soon. They gotta offload somebody, and which is why I think DK Metcalf is an option. Tyler Lockett's another option to be completely honest. And then when Mike says here, I'd rather pay George, I would rather not, because Brandon Aiyuk is already a much better receiver than George Pickens. Not taking anything away from George. I think George is the potential is there for him to be one of the best receivers in football if he can round out his game a bit. But the ceiling's massive. But as of right now, Brandon Aiyuk is one of the best receivers at getting separation in the league, and he can beat man coverage. He can beat zone coverage. There's really not anything that Aiyuk can't do, and he's still young. So you sign him to have that be your big money guy at the receiver position, which in today's NFL, you got to pay somebody. Realistically, you have to. So Aiyuk could be your big money guy, ride for the next 2 seasons with Aiyuk and George, and then let George walk in free agency. Or you could even franchise tag him if you really wanted to. If you were really desperate enough and had the cap space to do it, you could do that. But at least you would have 2 seasons of having an elite duo at receiver with Aiyuk and George Pickens. That's what I would do. And then, if you can find a way to pay George later, then great. If not, you could develop Roman Wilson. He could become a number 2 eventually. You could draft a number 2 guy. There's always receivers in the draft. So I am not hesitant, if not saying this is what would get it done, but if the 49ers said, hey, James Daniels in a first, I'm saying yes before I let him off. I'm making sure that Aiyuk's already on the plane before I get off the phone. That's what I would do. James Daniels in a first, I'd do it in a heartbeat.
I think with all the depth they're kind of building along the offensive line, I think that would make perfect sense. And it kind of it transitions them into next year as well, when like they have been popping up in the comments, the caps. I mean, we have even more cap space next year, and to go out and make more moves. So I mean, James Daniels wouldn't be a huge loss with the depth they build across the offensive line. Losing the first round pick next year would be all right, especially when you're going to have a guy like Aiyuk and George Pickens on both. I mean, there's 1 of your holes filled, and then you go out and you fill the other holes with the cap space that you have. I mean, it makes perfect sense.
So listen, so many people don't want to give away a first round pick, but the last time the Steelers did, they got Minkah Fitzpatrick out of it.
Yeah,
that might be the best use of a first round pick since they drafted TJ Watt. Now, I'm kind of not counting Broderick Jones or Troy Fautanu in that, just because it's still too early. We haven't even seen Fautanu take an NFL snap, and we only have 1 season of Broderick Jones. So I don't want to, I'm kind of just not regarding those whenever I say something like that.
Yeah.
But even going back to 2022, Najee Harris, I'm sorry, but the first round pick that gave me Minkah Fitzpatrick is a better use of a first round pick than drafting Najee Harris. And so if it gets you an already established elite receiver, that is a heck of a use of a first round pick, because that first round pick is never guaranteed to be a legitimate first round talent in the NFL. Kenny Pickett is a perfect example of that. Dude's already starting to lose second team snaps in Philly. Yeah. Come on. It's if you can get a guy who's already established and can be a part of your team for years to come, why not?
Especially if you
absolutely
have the cap
do
space.
that.
If you have the money to spend, I think Minkah was the perfect example, especially because he had the control as well. I think you still had 2 or 3 years left on his rookie contract.
Correct.
I mean, he was. But it was worth giving up a first round pick. And if you're talking about a guy yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can see how that has paid off over the last couple of years in Pittsburgh. But and when we're talking about a guy Aiyuk, who's a proven talent, and is worth the money that you're going to give him, especially when you have a wide receiver on the other side of the field who has one of the highest ceilings in the NFL in terms of a receiver. It's worth it. It's worth it to put the offense together and kind of set yourself up for a postseason run.
Yeah. And for people saying, well, Minkah still had, so many years left on the rookie deal. It's well, okay. You're still getting a guy you were still going to have to pay him. Even if you got 3 good years of Minkah and it didn't produce the Super Bowl, the only way to really continue to make that first round pick work is if you sign him to a second contract, which really, if you want to talk about any first round pick really working out, that first round pick is pretty much going to have to sign a second contract in order to really, truly be a good use of a first round pick.
Yeah.
Which that happened with TJ Watt. They signed him to a big contract. They did it with Minka after they acquired him. And if they do that with Brandon Aiyuk, if they sign him, most likely, if they sign him to an extension, like if they trade for Aiyuk and then sign him to a big contract extension, I would assume that what he gets this year is still going to be either the same figure that he's getting under the fifth-year option, or it's going to be something similar, something that works and fits under the Steelers' cap now. And then they can figure out how to structure the remainder of it, whether it's 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is. So I still think that a first-round pick is worth the cost of a Brandon Aiyuk, just because of what you already know that he can do in the NFL. He doesn't have to be, he's not some sort of product of Kyle Shanahan's system. You can sit there and watch the film and watch how he can consistently beat man coverage, consistently beat zone coverage. He's a really good receiver. He's one of the best in the league. Like like, I'm not going to say he's like Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson level quite, but top 10, no question about it.
You can drop him into the system and he's going to be productive right away, no matter what.
100%. So now again, with all this news, all this noise coming up from social media, we still have yet to see if it actually happens. I'm, from what I've been told, the team is convinced that they're going to get a guy. Just because the team feels that way doesn't mean it's going to happen. Yeah, there could be they might be misreading the room quite a bit. I don't know. But yeah, I all I'm going to say is that 10 days ago, I reported that the team is convinced that they can get one of these guys, that the 49ers were beginning to soften to the idea of a trade to an AFC opponent or to an AFC team. And lo and behold, 10 days later, there's some more noise about possibly this happening. I don't know, but I would say nothing new. I haven't gotten any text from any sources telling me, oh yeah, this is about to happen. So I'm not saying nothing new is happening, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think anything's also imminent either.
Yeah.
It's still early. We haven't even played the first preseason game yet. Like, that's still a few days away. Before we wrap it up, any other thoughts from training camp so far that you wanted to touch on? We talked about the quarterback stuff. Obviously, we had to hit on the Aiyuk stuff today since that's become a Twitter storm. Any other thoughts that you had from camp? That's just stuff that's really stood out to you, stuff that kind of helps set up either this, like preferably probably this week, since the first preseason game is coming up Friday.
Roman Wilson was out of a training. He was out of a walking boot already, which is a good development in terms of getting him back as quick as possible. We saw him walk by yesterday. He didn't stop to talk to anyone, but he had an ankle sleeve on, like a little ankle sleeve brace type deal. He was walking with a little bit of a limp, but being out of the walking boot in general is good. In terms of everything else, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren have both looked really, really good to me. Outside of that, I haven't really seen much development from the other guys. We've seen, pieces and sparks here and there. From practice yesterday, one thing that I did miss that I'm probably sure you'll be a little disappointed that you did miss was the use of tight ends. I mean, there was multiple plays yesterday where there was one point where there were 4 tight ends on the field at one point. So you can see the big packages being used. Jack Coletta has been getting some look at fullback and stuff like that. So it's just, you can see Arthur Smith is getting very, very, very creative with who he puts on the field in terms of attacking defenses and making sure stuff doesn't look alike and, telegraphing anything like that. So it was interesting to watch yesterday.
Trying to knock out a couple questions here because we got some people who are knocking some questions. End of the show is a good time for that anyway. Mike asks, who from our sophomore squad other than Benton and JPJ has surprised you guys? I wouldn't say no. Maybe Darnell Washington. I wouldn't say surprised, but Darnell Washington's looked really good, especially in the backs on backers, which I know he's not a back or a backer, but tight ends are usually part of that too. And I shoot, like, he was stoning Alex Highsmith the other day. And Alex Highsmith has been a guy who's racked up 14.5 sacks in the season. So he's a guy who can get after the quarterback at the NFL level. And Darnell Washington was pretty much swatting him away like a fly. like looking really, really good. Now, to be fair, it's a one-on-one drill. It's not a full-on simulation of what a pass rush, rep looks like, because there are 10 other guys on the field on each side. But I will say that Darnell Washington has looked pretty good. I don't know if I've seen enough on the receiving end of it, like in terms of being part of the offense, being a legitimate receiving threat. He catches passes every now and then, but I'm not seeing like, whoa, the athleticism starting to really pop or anything like that. I still think that he's a distant second. I still think that probably the second tight end in terms of receiving is still Connor Hayward. I'll put it that way. I don't think that Darnell's quite like leapfrogged Connor in that regard, but everything else I'm seeing from Darnell is looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go with Connor Hayward, to be honest with you. He's just had a lot of flashes so far through camp, and he's obviously gained the respect of both Russ and Justin Fields at times throughout camp. But I mean, like you said, Darnell's looked good in terms of what he can do in the running game, blocking wise, getting outside. I think they both can be utilized. They both can be utilized in different ways, because I think they're two different types of kind of tight ends. I mean, Darnell Washington is this ginormous monster on the field that can kind of take on linebackers and everything like that. And then Connor Hayward is more of a guy that can get out and kind of get out into space and everything like that. I mean, I've seen him catch a couple pretty long passes down the field. So yeah, I mean, both of those guys have really stood out to me so far.
Yeah. Stephen A. Asks, when do the Steelers practice with the Bills, and will that be open to the public? It is the day after training camp wraps. So I believe it is, let me pull up my calendar here. I think it's a Thursday. And that would be Thursday the 15th. And it is at Acrisure Stadium. It is not part of training camp. Training camp wraps the day before, I believe, on the 14th. And then the practice is the following day, I believe, on the 15th, 2 days before they play their preseason game. And no, it is not open to the public. That joint practice will probably be, from everything that I've been told, be a practice that heavily includes work on the kickoff. And that's probably a reason why they don't have it open to the public. They don't want anything being kind of leaked out about what it looks like, about what either the Bills or the Steelers are going to be trying to do. So I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no because I know it's not open to the public, but that is when it happens. And so, yeah, that's that one. Let's see. Any other questions here? I would even like to throw, probably to go back to Mike's question, I might even like to throw Nick Herbig in there too. I thought he's had some good moments. I don't quite think that he has emerged as a legitimate number 3. I think there's a reason why they brought back Marcus Golden. And then, no, I don't think it's just because David Perales injured his knee. I still think that Marcus Golden is back with the Steelers for a reason, and that Marcus Golden will start off the season, barring any really, really significant developments during the preseason games. I still think Marcus Golden will start the season as the number 3 edge rusher, the first guy on the field whenever either Highsmith or Watt need a breather. But I still think Nick Herbig's had a good camp. Really good question here from Steven that we probably need to touch on before we get to the show. We close up this show and practice begins tomorrow. Any injuries? Hopefully everyone is staying relatively healthy. There's one that I'm wanting to kind of watch to see what happens, and that's Patrick Queen. What's the latest that you saw from him yesterday?
Yeah, he was obviously, he didn't practice Saturday after the pretty physical practice Friday Night Lights under the lights at Latrobe Memorial Stadium. He showed up yesterday. He was in hoodie and sweatpants. He wasn't limping at all. He wasn't showing any signs of, he wasn't like, he didn't have an ice pack on or anything like that.
Right.
He was walking around fine. So it was just, when we asked Mike Tomlin afterwards, it was status quo with all the injuries that were reported. I'm assuming he'll be back tomorrow when they get back on the field. Because Tomlin did speak about, kind of wanting to give anyone who needed an extra day, that extra day to kind of stack up, an extended period of time to get healthy before going into next week and going into the first preseason game. So I would assume that he'll be fine going if he's in pads tomorrow, if he's practicing tomorrow, I would assume we'll be good going forward. But he said everything was status quo, day to day, stuff like that.
I do think that at some point during either the remainder of camp or even going into practices once camp concludes, that we're going to start seeing a little bit less of Patrick Queen, not because, of injuries or anything, but he might eventually become one of those guys that kind of gets the same treatment that TJ Watt and Isaac Seumalo and Minka Fitzpatrick and all those guys get, as he might start getting more vet days just to preserve his health, preserve his body. I think that he's gotten a lot of practice reps early to better establish himself as the quarterback. I mean, Mike Tomlin, in an interview with Kay Adams a couple days ago, or I think it was yesterday, pretty much he called Patrick Queen the quarterback of the defense. And so if he is literally the guy with the green dot calling the plays, he's the main communicator of that defense, then yes, it's important for him to be out there. And so I do think, though, that he's gotten enough practice reps under his belt where you could probably afford to have Queen sit a little bit more often, because that's a guy you want to have on the field. All right.
Yeah. I think when you talk about those veteran days and everything like that, I talked to Isaac yesterday after practice, and it was just kind of asking him how beneficial those are. And he's like, no one can beat father time. As much as I'd like to think I was invincible, you need those days off and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I think the veterans appreciate those days, but I think it also goes to the fact of building up and developing that depth of the line. I mean, Tomlin was pretty high on guys like Logan Lee and Loudermilk, Isaiah Loudermilk yesterday, because they took advantage of the opportunity when guys like Keanu Benton and Ogunjobi were setting out drills, and they really kind of made a name for themselves and stepped up. And that's all. It all goes into developing depth, and I think, so as much as it gives the veterans a day off and time to rest and time to recover and everything like that, it also gives those younger players an opportunity to kind of step up and showcase what they're working with and, what they can contribute to the team. So it's kind of a, win-win situation for Tomlin.
Yeah. Gene asks, interesting question. This can kind of be related to the Aiyuk stuff. Is the Golden signing a prelude to a trade, including Highsmith? I haven't heard anything about the Steelers wanting to offload Alex Highsmith in a trade. Sorry, I just had to check. There is breaking news from Adam Schefter, but it's not.
Yeah, that's what I was just looking at.
No, Harrison Butker signed a contract extension. So everybody calm down. Contract extension for Harrison Butker. So that's the news that just broke here at the 38th minute of the show here. But I mean, if it has to be part of it, then the deeper you are at every position on the roster, the more flexibility you have to do. If the 49ers are saying, hey, we're not willing to take James Daniels in a first for Aiyuk, but if you are willing to put Alex Highsmith in there, then maybe we're only willing to, or maybe we're good with like a second and a fourth instead of a first, or something along those lines. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I have a hard time thinking that Aiyuk trade happens without a first round pick. I'm just saying that I don't think that it necessarily means that, since they got Marcus Golden back, now Alex Highsmith is the main trade ship with whatever. It could be, that could be the guy, the piece that goes in a trade. I don't know, but I don't think that I don't think the two are related. I'll put it that way. I don't think that they had to acquire re-sign Marcus Golden so that they can now shop Alex Highsmith in a way of trying to either trade for Brandon Aiyuk or DK Metcalf or whoever else. I don't think they're necessarily related. I think they would just love if they had their way, they would love to be able to run it back with the same edge group that they had last year because it was a productive group.
Yeah. And I've always looked, I mean, obviously I'm new to the beat and everything like that, but I've always looked at Highsmith as one of those guys that, he's kind of one of the keys to the defense in a way. And I don't know if they would necessarily consider trading him. That's just my look at it from kind of like somewhat of an outsider's perspective in a way. Yeah. But it just doesn't, I don't know. He doesn't seem like kind of the guy that I would, or the Steelers would trade, if that makes sense.
Lifted One says, why in the world would we trade Highsmith? And the only answer that I can give to that question is that if you're trying to land a big fish, you got to give up something to get something.
That's true.
That would be the only legitimate answer that I could possibly give, because again, I think if the Steelers had their way, they don't want to get rid of Alex Highsmith at all. And so I don't think he's going to be part of a trade. If the trade does happen, I don't think he's going to be part of it. A couple more questions. We're going to sign off here because we're already at 40 minutes. Rick asks, is there any real pressure on the 49ers? Can't they just wait to see if any big time receivers get hurt across the league? The problem is that I think the longer this goes, the more leverage the 49ers lose.
Yeah.
And that's I don't cover the 49ers. I'm in Pittsburgh and I'm way far away from the Bay Area. So I'm not going to sit here and try to pretend that I know what's going on there. I only know what's going on from who I talk to in the Steelers organization. And that's even from the Steelers perspective. Again, like the report that I had was the Steelers are convinced that they're going to get somebody. It wasn't that the 49ers are definitely going to be trading him. I'm not covering the 49ers, but from the Steelers perspective, something within them feels like that they can get a guy. And so if they are feeling that way for whatever reason, then there might be something brewing there. And maybe that's because maybe they also feel the same way, that maybe the longer this goes, the more leverage the 49ers lose, the more leverage that Aiyuk gains. And to me, if I'm the 49ers, I'm going to put this out there because I don't want anything to anybody to feel like I'm trying to clamor or push for this trade to happen. If I were John Lynch of the 49ers, I'm giving Brandon Aiyuk what he wants and I'll trade Debo. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also not an NFL GM. So John Lynch may hear that and be like, yep, there's a reason why you're not an NFL GM. I'm just saying that's what I would do. I would rather have Brandon, if I have to choose between one of the two, because I also have to pay Trent Williams. I also probably have to sign or trade. Did I say trade? I meant sign. I also have to sign Trent Williams, which is going to cost a lot of money, even though he's 36. Then you're talking about next offseason having to probably sign Brock Purdy to a quarterback contract, which you're seeing what quarterbacks are going for nowadays. You can't pay everybody. You got to get rid of somebody. You got to get some cap relief. I would rather sign Aiyuk to a big contract and trade Debo. That's what I would do. But if the 49ers aren't willing to do that, if they are just not willing to give Aiyuk what he wants, trade him to a team that will give him what he wants, and you get any asset you can get back. That's what I think is most likely going to happen. Or the 49ers can just ride and try to win a Super Bowl. But if Brandon Aiyuk is willing to miss games, which there's some conflicting information out there about whether he is or not, but if he's willing to miss games, then again, the 49ers are continuing to lose leverage the longer this goes.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting situation to see how it's gonna play out. There are so many contributing factors of what could happen kind of as it moves forward. I think it depends on what they get in trade offers and things like that, and how those conversations go. And obviously, when it comes down to money, I mean, you never know what can happen.
Yeah. Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up today. We're at 43 minutes now. We've hit on the quarterback stuff. We've hit on the Brandon Aiyuk stuff. I told you guys we were going to be talking about the Aiyuk again when this stuff, especially on a day in which there's no practice, and so it's kind of a slow news day. Stuff spreads like wildfire in social media. I guess we got to kind of talk about it. So, but since I actually have something that I can latch onto that I've already put out there as a report, then I'm gonna, because I haven't heard anything different, and the only development that's changed there is that Tyreek's not going anywhere. But even then, most likely scenario, who has always been Brandon Aiyuk, especially because, as like Adam Schefter pointed out today, he maintains a bit of leverage there. And Aiyuk's already said, Commanders for Steelers if I don't play for the 49ers. And so if he feels like like he wants to play for the Steelers and Omar Khan is willing to give up the necessary price to get him, then it may end up happening. I don't know. But as we sit here on August 5th, it hasn't happened yet. We'll see. We're back in Latrobe tomorrow, St. Vincent College, training camp practice, 10:30 in the morning is the obviously the time of the practice. We'll be back at 3 p.m. Eastern to do the Southside beat again. We will recap everything that we've seen from obviously from practice. And then if a trade ends up happening, maybe, just maybe, we'll do an emergency podcast. I don't know. We'll see. But for now, we're going to sign off. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We will catch you guys on the Flippity Flip tomorrow.
See you later, guys.